Stories told of a country doctor who went to the county fair with his wife every year, many years, year after year after year. Finally, he gets to the country fair this year, and it's his 80th birthday. And every year he goes, there's this man who takes the people up in an airplane, just a quick trip, just so they get to experience flying around, and he only charges $10. And every year, this country farmer, he says to his wife, I really want to go on this trip, and it's only $10. And every year, his wife says to him, $10? Do you know what $10 is worth? $10 is $10. We can't afford that. We're not going. And every year, year after year, this poor man is deprived of this trip. And so this year he says, it's my 80th birthday. I want to go on the trip. And his wife says back to him, no way. $10 is $10. We can't afford it. And so while they're having this conversation, the pilot, he's off in the distance, and he overhears them having this discussion. And he says, you know what, I'll tell you what, I'll take you up in the airplane for free. All you have to do is not say a word. Just be quiet. Wife thinks that's a great deal, so she agrees to take her husband for his 80th birthday up in the plane. And up they go. And they're flying around, and the pilot, he doesn't hear anything coming from the back of the plane. So he starts to, tip it and twirl it and roll it and nosedive it, and he's barrel rolling and he's going, and he never hears a word out of the back of the plane. So he lands and he turns around and he looks and he's like, to the farmer, he's like, why didn't you say something? And the farmer says, well, when she fell out, I was reminded that $10 is $10. It's tough to keep you guys going. We know the value of money, don't we? We know the value of $10. We know what it's worth. We know what we can buy with it. We know how hard we have to work in order to get it. But the question for today is, do you know the value of your own life? Do you know your own value? Because in today's world, a lot of people associate the value of their own life with their success or their lack of success. I get a lot of people who come into my office and they're dealing with this idea that their lack of success has some kind of meaning or bearing upon their value. They'll say to me, I've made terrible mistakes in my life, and there's no way in the world that I could possibly correct them. Or they'll say, everything I touch turns to liquid sludge. I'm a complete jinx. Nothing I ever do works out to be this great success. Or they'll say, I simply feel like I'm not needed by anyone. No one would miss me if I was gone. I'm literally good for nothing. I'll get young children who will come in our youth group and they'll say, we don't feel like we have any purpose in life. Why are we all here? Well, today I want to talk to you about those questions. I want to talk to you about why you are here. And we're going to go back to the psalm that King David wrote for us, that we have read for us this morning. King David, he was a shepherd boy. He was raised in the lowliest kind of environment and through a lot of trials and a lot of hurdles and a lot of errors and a lot of obedience and a lot of confession. David became the king of Israel. And through that, he wrote the book of Psalms, or at least he wrote most of it. And the book of Psalms, they're songs, they're poems, it's poetry, all designed to worship and give praise to God. And so this is how he begins this psalm. He says, you, God, are the one who created my innermost parts. Another way that gets translated is, you created my inward parts. The word he used was kilah. It's the Hebrew word, and literally translates, it means kidney. So what David was singing out and praising was, God, you made my kidney. Now for us, we think that's a lot, right? Because if you were going to talk about an organ inside of your body that was central to being connected to God, what organ might it be? The heart. But see, the people who were listening to David at the time, the people who were hearing this song and reading his poetry, they knew that the kidney was not just an organ in our body, it was also the source of our emotions. It was the source of our conscience. It's the source of what makes us a human being. And so David writes, God, you are the one who knitted together my conscience. You are the one who created all of the emotions that are inside of me. No one knows me deeper and better than the one who made me and developed my conscience. On one hand, that's a really enlivening and encouraging kind of statement to hear. But on the other, that has to be just a little bit nervous, right? Because now God knows you deeper than anyone, ever, including you, will ever know you. So David, while he's giving worship and praise, he's asking the same exact questions that we're asking today. Do I have any value? Am I worth anything? What is my purpose for being here in this place and at this time? And who else should David be asking than the one who created him? And essentially, David is saying to God, do I even matter? Did you create me on purpose, or was I a complete mistake? So this morning, we're going to look at 3 reasons that you matter to God. 3 reasons that he considers you special. 3 reasons that he values you highly. The first is that God knew you before anyone else. Now, if you spent a day in church, you remember that God said, I knew you before when you were in the womb. And we all say how lovely and pretty, and boy, that's just so reassuring to me to know that God knew me when I was in my mother's womb. But that's not exactly what God said. When God sent out the prophet Jeremiah into the world and gave Jeremiah words to speak to the people, what he said to Jeremiah first, to encourage Jeremiah that he had the strength and the courage and the knowledge to do what he wanted him to go and do, God said to Jeremiah, before I formed you in the womb, before you were even an embryo, I knew you. And before you were born, I set you apart. Before Jeremiah's mother ever even knew that she was going to have a baby, before Jeremiah's mother and father ever planned to have a child, before Jeremiah's parents ever had the accident that occurred and Jeremiah was the result, God knew him. Long before we were ever in a womb. You know, I've heard moms in stores and other places when children are acting up and the children are shouting out, well, you don't know me, you don't know anything about me, you don't understand me. I've heard moms yell back, I knew you before you were even born. God said to Jeremiah, I knew you before that. I knew you before that. And when I created you, you were a masterpiece. You were an original. You are a one of a kind. You are not ordinary. You are special. And you are set apart. Which, if we really think about this, and we think a little bit further about what God is saying that is so special to him, is that when you come to church on Sunday, the first Sunday of the month, and you participate in Holy Communion, and you see the bread and you see the juice, you're looking at something very holy. And when you open the Bible and you look at God's Word and you read God's Word, you are hearing something very holy. The only other thing that you're going to see that's holy in your life besides those 2 things is the person sitting next to you. The person sitting next to you was holy and created by God. Long before we ever knew they were going to exist. God thought and loved and created that person sitting next to you. And that person sitting in front of you and behind you is one of the most holiest things you are ever going to see in your life. God created you, and He knew you before anyone else had even thought of you. The second reason that we know that we are special and unique to God is because you look like God. So go ahead, turn to the person next to you, take a good hard look, and then you can chuckle that that's what God looks like. But created in God's image does not mean what you see in the mirror. Created in God's image means it's what you feel in your heart. Each and every one of us have been created in the image of God, in His resemblance of God, which means we've been created with the same emotions and heart and empathy that God has. Which means inside of us, we have something that stirs in us when something bothers us. When someone is mistreated, there's a wrong done in the world, or there's a need that has to be filled. Now, some people called evolutionists would say, nope, you're just simply a mistake. You're just two cells that collided by accident, and you all look alike, and you all have the same kind of mannerisms. You're no different than a monkey or a giraffe or a vegetable. We know that we are so complex and so beautifully made in the image of God that in our likeness, our conscience goes far beyond a rutabaga. Our conscience is what drives us. It's what moves us. It's what calls us together to serve and to guide and to help and to care for one another. All the way back to the beginning of time in the story of creation, it says, God said, let us make him in our image, in our likeness, and let him to rule over all the earth. And so David wrote in his praise, he said, I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. And we are. We are wonderfully made. I give great credit to all those in the medical and science field. All the wonderful advances they've made to keep us healthy and to heal us when we get sick and to help us to live longer and longer and longer. But there's not a scientist or a doctor in the world who will tell you that they understand the human body completely. They don't. It's amazing how it's put together and the things that it will do and how it will react and respond and grow and the things that it's able to do far beyond what we thought possible. And here we are, thousands and thousands of years later with lots of great brains and great technology, and we still are just literally on the tip of the iceberg in understanding the body. It is an incredible, incredible thing. Do you know what a DNA strand is? The DNA strand is all the cells that show exactly who you are and all the things that you're made up of. And it's unique to every single one of us. And they say that if you take a DNA strand and you stack it end to end and you stretch it all out, it will go around our solar system twice. That is amazing. An amazing miracle. And we are created in his image to do that. The third reason that we know we are special in the image and the sight of God. And this is probably what should mean the most to all of us, because we understand this kind of economic. When something is really important to us or something that we value, we pay a lot for it, don't we? We pay a lot for our houses, we pay a lot for our education. There isn't anything we wouldn't pay for our children. We understand that when something is valued, we pay a lot for it. And God paid a lot for us. From the first days in the Garden of Eden, when we became tainted with sin, God has struggled over the generations to bring us back in relationship with him. Until finally he paid the biggest price ever. He sent his son to live with us and to be with us and then to suffer the consequences for all the wrongs that we have done and all the sin that has tainted us. He was crucified and he was killed. He suffered that penalty for us. And that was the price for our freedom from sin. The Apostle Paul wrote in his letter to the Corinth, he said, remember, you are not your own. You were bought at a price. And therefore, honor God. I'm still amazed after saying all these things and thinking of all the ways that God finds us so filled with worth and value that there are still some who would say, no, there simply is no God. We have to remove God from everything. And I think if we really do that, if we really bow down and we remove God from the entire picture of life, what happens to our value and our worth? Because some would say we're not worth anything more than the minerals that are inside of our body, which I think now is somewhere around $2.40. If we remove God from all of this, then we just look at the world like some people look at the world today. We look at the world like it's all an accident and that there are those who are better than and those who are more entitled than. We look at the world like the Sunni Muslims and the way they look at the Shia Muslims. Neither one thinks the other has any value. We look at those people who look at an unborn baby and think that it has absolutely no value in this world. We look at those who look at Jewish people the way Hitler did and thought they had absolutely no value in this world. We look at the way that Israelis and the Palestinians now work together and don't work together because they don't think either side has any value or worth in this world. Removing God from the entire picture of the world means that we are all worth nothing. But remember that God ransomed us, that God paid the price for us, and that God thinks you are worthy of giving His only Son to do that. To bow down from all of His divinity, to become humanity, to suffer the consequences of all of that, that means you are worth something because somebody did that for you. God did that for you. And so when we understand how much worth and value God has in us, now we ask the same question that David asked. What is my purpose? Why am I here? Do you remember the most important commandments? There's two of them. We talked about them last week. Love God and love as yourself. Love your neighbor as yourself. Very simple, right? He said, all the 616 commandments that Moses came down with, we buried them down to 10, and now we're up to 2. Love God and love your neighbor as yourself. And when you start thinking about how you're going to spend every day of your life that you've been given by God, how are we going to spend it? How are we going to plan our schedules? What's the one thing that Jesus tells us we have to remember? To be in God's Word. To be in God's Word and understand what God is teaching us and telling us. And that can guide how we plan our daily lives in terms of our schedule. So then what does God's Word say about us? What does God's Word say about our value and our purpose in this world? If God's sole purpose for Him is to love us and to care for us and guide us, what does God want us to do? What's our purpose? It's to love Him back. It's that easy. You want to know what your purpose is in this world? It's to love God. It doesn't get any more simpler than that. The central purpose of every single Christian person's life in this world is to love God. And then the most miraculous thing happens when we understand how simple this is. All of the rest of our life flows from that. Just like our schedules, when we know that our schedule is centered around centering ourselves on God's Word and the rest of it flows, now that you know your purpose is to love God, it gets pretty easy. You don't have to worry about whether or not your purpose is to be a janitor or an engineer or an airplane pilot or a firefighter or a mom or a dad or a teacher. All you need to know is that whenever you're doing whatever you're doing and whatever role you have, love God. Your purpose, wherever you are, love God. Well, how do I do that? Are you talking about coming to church every day? The second commandment says to love your neighbor. You want to love God, you love one another. You want to show God how much you love Him? Love the person sitting next to you. Love the person in front of you and behind you. Love the coworker at work who can make it very difficult for you to love. Love the customer who comes in who's having a bad day. Love the kids in your classroom. Love your parents who drive you nuts. Love. What's your purpose in this world? It gets real simple. God says, love. We love by loving others. So how do we love others? Well, you all know how to love one another. You do a great job here at church. You love all sorts of people around the world. And we do it by serving them, right? When there's a need, we step in. When there's a shoulder that's needed, we lean forward. When there's a word that has to be spoken, we speak. When there is something that has to be spoken against, we speak against. We serve people. There's no better way to show your love for God than to serve the people that He loves. If the person sitting next to you is the most holiest thing you're going to see in this world, how are you going to treat them? We're going to love them, we're going to respect them, and we're going to serve them. I would imagine most of you know the name Dave Thomas, right? You know Dave Thomas. He's the guy who created Wendy's fast food. He had an interesting kind of childhood. He was adopted. He was always a big proponent of children being adopted and the adoption programs. He never graduated high school. And he never thought his purpose in life was to be the CEO or the president of a company. He always said his purpose is what you can see when you look at his company's profile book and his prospectus book. There you can see what his purpose is. Because there's a picture of Dave Thomas in that book, and he's wearing an apron, and he's holding a mop, and he's carrying a bucket. And he's at work. And he says, my purpose in this world is to serve. To serve. A commitment to serve others. That's his purpose. And he said, I didn't get an MBA, a master's in business. No, I got an MBA. It's the mop bucket attitude. And the mop bucket attitude keeps my life simple. I know exactly what I'm supposed to do every day. Serve. To serve. And to keep serving. Even Jesus, when he was with the crowds of people, he pushed the crowd aside and he called the children forward and he took the child and put the child on his lap. And Jesus said, whoever welcomes one of these little children in my name welcomes me. And whoever welcomes me doesn't just welcome me, he welcomes the one who sent me. Serving. Serving is our purpose to loving God. And it's our only purpose in the world that we really need to consider. And again, what's amazing is when we simplify our lives and we understand this, then we have a whole new space in our life for being thankful. Serving people and being thankful that they're in our lives and giving back to us. Helping us to grow in our spirituality. Simple purpose in this life. You know, I think of that airplane pilot and the country farmer and his wife, and I think of that $10 bill. And his wife kept saying, $10 is $10, it has so much value. And we understand the value of a $10 bill, don't we? I mean, if I wanted to give this $10 bill to Rose, she'd probably gladly accept it. Of course, if I took the bill and I just wrinkled it up and I coughed on it, and then I went to give it to Rose, she'd probably pull out her gloves and she'd take the $10 bill, wouldn't she? She knows the value of the bill, right? And if I took the $10 bill and I put it on the floor and I stomped on it and I got it dirty and then I gave it to her, she would still understand the value of the $10 bill. Because Rose knows that the $10 bill has got great backing. It stood behind the United States government. It has great value and worth. No matter how crumpled or stained or dirty or torn or tired, it still has value because it's backed. You have value because you are backed by God, who finds you so worthy and so priceless that He gave His only Son to pay you back, to get you back to Him. Your value means that much to him. You are priceless. Our purpose in this world is just to love him back. And we love him by loving all those who are